The newest public charge rule just dropped this week is an expansion on the memo that came out last year. To make it clear, what is public charge? It is a reason for denial. The government can deny people's green card if there is a heightened certainty or probability that this individual who's applying for a green card might become a public charge, might become indebted, might become a leech on society, according to some USC officers. Basically, they might be draining taxpayer money. So, what is and how do you decide public charge? This new memo, the main thing it does is it blows out of the water all the confines and the restrictions in the prior administration. The prior firm rule was that you can consider these benefits, but you can't consider other benefits. You can only consider benefits that you've taken, but not what your family has taken. There's all these red lines surrounding when somebody will become a public charge, only consider these narrow set of factors. This new memo blows that out of the water and says an officer can look at everything and anything. It is case specific. They will use their best judgment to decide if the individual in front of them is going to be a public charge or not. So basically blowing up all red line kind of criteria. So you might be saying, well, what are the things that they're supposed to consider? So now the officers, they have a list of factors that they want to look into. And a lot of them are pretty common sense, but let's go through some of them, right? Your prior work history, your tax returns, how much is your bank account, how much do you earn, how much does your sponsor earn, do you have any great investments, what is your education level, how likely are you able to get a new job, a higher paying job, how long have you held your job, have you used any benefits before, how healthy are you? If you are sickly, then there's a chance that even if you do get a job, you might not be able to hold the job and you might have to drain the taxpayer money by going to the hospital, right? So these are all the things, the factors that they're looking into, and so much more. That's the kind of parameter that this administration is doing. In the prior memo last year, they laid it out very clearly why they want to reverse the prior administration's decision, and they did so this week with the public charge rule that's final and going to be effective starting September 2026. It's a huge deal because prior to this, let's say the past 10, 20, 30 years, the number of cases in the United States and abroad of people applying for green cards and then being denied due to public charge is in single double digits. It's very, very low. It's, in this administration's words, is ridiculously low. They think there are so many people who are applying for green cards and getting green cards and then becoming a debt to society. And yes, you're right that there's a sponsor, so the government can go after the sponsor to try to get the money back. Realistically, that hasn't been something that people have done, the government has done, and you can see kind of why, right? Because if the government goes after the sponsor, like, hey, you signed for this person to come to the United States, now this person might say, well, I didn't sign that, it was forged, now there's a litigation, now you have to kind of prove it, you have to waste all this money just to try to get back a couple hundred or a couple $1,000s. There's other higher priorities. So the safety mechanism of making sure people do come to the US with a sponsorship isn't actually a workable system where that the government necessarily wants to enforce. And even if they do enforce it, it kind of harms everybody, right? Now the US citizen who sponsored the foreigner, now they have to pay the government all this money, and now they don't have the spending power to stimulate the economy, right? So it's a lose-lose-lose situation. So that is why they want to combat. They think that in the past 10, 20, 30 years, there's so many people who have used these public benefits. So now they want to heighten the public charge denial rate. We don't know exactly how many cases are going to be denied. Obviously, that's conjecture and future planning. But they do put a number as to how much money the government will potentially save in the transfer costs, and the staggering amount of $13 billion. Just to put that in perspective, $13 billion annually, not like in the lifetime of this rule, it's every year the government thinks they don't have to spend $13 billion on people who are getting green cards from using the benefits, and from the people who will be so afraid that they won't even apply for these benefits, and so the government will save that money. The entire FBI of the United States is less than 13 billion that the government thinks that they could potentially save. There's really little credibility for that on both sides. It's so hard to estimate this, so that's just a random number that people are throwing out that's actually in the rule and the policy. But even if half of that is accurate, still 6 to 7 billion is still a lot of money for the government, right? But they think they will save that money. Now, what's really interesting about this rule is that it's over 100 pages in detail responding to all the public comments. People who are for it, people who are against it. And there's a lot of recognition that yes, we understand this will harm a lot of businesses. Why? Because that 13 billion that the government is gonna save doesn't mean it's going straight to the pocket of all the foreigners. It's a lot of businesses who are providing services to these individuals and they're billing the government, right? So now hospitals, nonprofits, a lot of different places that relied on government funds. Well, if public charge is a rule, people stop applying, people stop going, well then now they have to either change their business model or do something, or else their organization will have a really big hit because the government is no longer sponsoring it. I feel like the public policy argument for this rule is quite strong. When I looked into this in the past 10, 20, 30 years, I was shocked by the number of cases that got denied. There's just a limited amount of cases that got denied by the public charge. And when you read through the congressional intent, there was no definition about public charge. So it is up to the whim of whichever agency head is running the organization, right? And so now with Trump in office, with USCIS, with the consulate, they are cracking down on the public charge. Well, that's why there's so much of the 75 country ban. What is concerning though is that even if this is right on the public policy standpoint, what is devastatingly scary is the lack of safeguards and the lack of clarity, because the emphasis is on individual officers' discretion. So if somebody only graduated high school and they have a small criminal record, they're a hard worker, but maybe the officer thinks, well, I think you're unhealthy and I don't think you have a high education and you haven't held a job for a long time, your tax return doesn't look good, I think I'm going to deny your case, even though you waited 10 plus years. Or maybe even your whole family wants to support you and in every respect you're good, but based on this public charge rule, I don't think you're going to make enough money, so I'm going to deny you. These borderline cases are going to happen, right? If this becomes rule, and it is going to become rule in September, how different officers adjudicate these cases will impact the next few generations.